the last session of the day. Is this good or what, right? You know, we pulled like this is like the prime position. We get to go out right after this and drink. Or in some of our cases, run to an airplane. How far away is LaGuardia? Don't tell me, I don't want to know. So the great OTT migration, we've come a long way. It used to be always, from OTT, friend or foe, right? So we're not friend or foe anymore. We know it's a great OTT migration. A couple of numbers, 18 to 34-year-olds spend 54% of their TV time streaming. That's up from 15% in 2012. 36% say that Netflix is Netflix, not TV, is their go-to source for television content. Millennials' TV viewing is only 34% of the time, down from 73% just 4.5 years ago. So obviously the NFL is making a deal, and they're making a deal with Twitter for Thursday night. It was all about millennials. We're going to talk a little bit about millennials, and then I'll zip it, I promise. But I have two of them, and so I have actually a focus group. I have a 26 and a 28-year-old, and it's like, so what are you guys doing now? That 18 to 34 viewership for the NFL is critical, but their live viewership is actually dropping. The NFL is actually losing viewers. That never happens. They've got 73 million viewers, 75 million viewers. They say that I think it was 10 of the 10 top shows all Sundays last year, last football season, were football games. 35 or 36 of the top 40 shows were football games. I'm a Giants fan. I don't watch them. It's too painful to watch, so I don't understand that whole thing. But conversely, the NFL game plan is growing by leaps and bounds, and that's obviously it's all OTT stuff. It's streamed games a few minutes after the game ends, HD, commercial free, the whole bit. Or you can watch the compressed game in 30 minutes, catch everything that went on in the game. So all 12 or 15 Eli Manning sacks, the 2 interceptions, but I'm a little bitter, but not too much. But it's not just millennials, right? Nielsen says that boomers, Gen X, they're watching less TV as well. They're cutting and shaving the cord. I'm a cord cutters out here. Any cord cutters? Cord shavers? Cord nevers? Good crowd. So they're cutting and shaving the cord. And more bad news, and this is really interesting to me, and it's in the focus group is like 31 people, so it's not like, it's more anecdotal than true. But the research said that older cord cutters, over 30 years old, are really happy about having cut the cord. They don't miss TV. They're not going back to pay TV. And having done it myself, this is also true, although I do miss hockey season. It's very tough, although there is a local bar, but that's another story. So what was really interesting for me is to see that I live in a little town in Michigan, and it's really interesting to watch that it's not just millennials, it's not just boomers or Gen X even. I was sitting in a breakfast spot one morning, and I'm listening to this table full, I eavesdrop, it's a very bad habit, of like 6 older ladies behind me, and they were like really old. And they're talking about Netflix or Hulu. And I'm thinking, this is really pretty cool. In little tiny Grand Haven, Michigan, all 55 people, and 6 of them are talking about Netflix or Hulu. And then they started talking about Apple TV or Roku. And I was like, this is, and it's got to be something, it can't be true, right? It's not happening. But we were talking before this, and we decided that it's not anymore a migration to OTT. It's a sprint. And it's not just consumers, it's content owners, it's service providers, it's a little bit of everybody. So last thing, how many of you have at least one SVOD subscription? Okay, about that's the next Netflix crowd. How about 2? 3? More than 3. You're an outlier, but that's a good thing. So we have a really good panel today, and I promise not to take us too far afield. That's a lie, we're going all over the place. But I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to talk about you, your company, and where you think, in a quick wrap-up, where you think OTT is going in 6 months. Greg, you want to start us off?
Sure. Hi, I'm Greg. I'm a product manager with Plex. And Plex is a media player that organizes and streams all of your personal collection of videos, music, photos, to all of your devices, phones, tablets, PCs, TV devices, including streaming devices, smart TVs, and gaming consoles. And Plex makes all of your collection look really beautiful and easy to access, basically no matter where you are, whether you're at home or streaming over Wi-Fi or cellular data. Plex makes it all really, really easy to access. And Plex's focus is on owned content and personal collections, on content that you've already purchased, content that you have on your PC and your files, and all of the content that's sort of been left out in the race to getting to streaming apps. So OTT is interesting to Plex in that OTT has been our focus from the beginning. And what we're seeing is this crazy sprawl of apps and services and devices across various platforms, where now we have kind of even more choice than ever before, but we also have more complexity than ever before. Both sort of the technical hurdles of just comprehending that matrix of what content and which services and which apps are available across the sort of dizzying array of devices and apps is a real challenge, and a real challenge to access. And so I think what we'll see play out over the next 6 to 12 months and over coming years is figuring out how this story converges back to something simple, and how we get back to platforms that make this easy and accessible, and platforms that simplify that problem of finding all of that media across all of these places and across all of these devices. One thing we've done at Plex is we're very platform neutral. We're available on basically every streaming box, on every platform. We do Chromecast, AirPlay, completely platform agnostic. And we know that not all of the platforms have that as their perspective. So it's interesting to us to see how this will play out, and who are the winners and who are the losers, and what determines that.
So Greg, tell us something that you're not allowed to say in public about Plex. No one will talk.
I think Plex is fantastic. I think we have more metadata sources than anyone else, really. One thing that we can do that our competitors can't is we can take your content, your own content, and augment that with subtitles, with fan art, with descriptions from sort of a wide array of third-party sources, and kind of put those all together into one really, really beautiful package for users.
Tell me about the size of Plex. Not the size of Plex, but the sweet spot of your customers. How big are they? How small are they?
We have millions of active users and households. We're primarily a free product with some freemium features. So we have a subscription service that gets you access to some freemium features, such as mobile sync for users who want to convert and save offline videos for airplanes or when you're traveling out of the country and don't have a data plan. Right now, our target audience has been sort of the high-end enthusiast, and we've been working our way down to make Plex sort of more accessible to a broader range of audiences. That's kind of been our focus so far as a business.
Good deal. Thanks. John.
John Narus. I work for HBO Latin America Group, mainly focused on South America and Caribbean region. My group is responsible for all of our consumer and B2B technology related to TVE, OTT, and streaming media. One of the things I hope to bring here is more of the global emerging market perspective. There's a lot of different business models happening in Latin America versus domestic. One of the things we're seeing really flourish is a lot of organizations that are wanting to distribute our content. So beyond our own OTT TV platforms, a lot of our existing partners and affiliates are developing their own platforms, and they want our content on their platforms.
4 languages that you guys deal with? 5 of you include British,
yeah,
the Queen's English.
We focus on 3 main ones.
Okay.
It's hard to get them. So we do English, Portuguese for Brazil, and then Spanish, of course.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Very different model than the U.S. model for HBO?
So I mean, there's a lot of similarities. We have our own HBO Now product we launched in test market in Colombia last year, and we've made announcements that we're rolling out in the rest of the region this year. And it's kind of a pseudo OTT offering. So we're not doing direct billing to the consumer, but we're partnering with other DTH providers, cable operators, and they're selling it on behalf of us.
Okay, very interesting time. And we talked on the phone a little bit about the payment method, and I think we should bring that out in the bigger group and let everybody volunteer some of that stuff. James.
Hello. James Glasscock from Machinima. I run our strategy and business development. How many people in the room are familiar with Machinima? Just raise your hands. Okay. I'd say only 20%. Okay, you must not be our target audience.
They're too old, which is frightening.
Yeah. So Machinima is a 10-year-old company. It started out as a multi-channel network on YouTube primarily. Today we drive about 4 billion video views on a monthly basis to about 150 million viewers. Pre-2015, YouTube was our first and only window for content distribution. Starting last year, we set up a premium windowing structure for our content to take our best content and create premium windows off of YouTube. So last year we partnered with Verizon Go 90, Sony PlayStation View, and Comcast Watchable, just to name a few of the platforms, to create premium experiences on those platforms before the content gets to YouTube. Our content is really sort of built on 3 pillars today. It's superheroes, esports, and video gaming. Superheroes is simply a nod to comic books and heroes. Esports, if you don't know about it, it's one of the fastest growing audience phenomenons that's happening around the world today. It's basically competitive video gaming. And then of course, gaming itself is the second largest category of content on YouTube today, second only to music. So this all appeals to really the male 18 to 34 audience. Over 75% of our audience is under the age of 35, and 80% of the audience are males. Yeah.
And we'll get back to those, especially those millennials. I'm sure you got like 1,000 things to say about them. I'll ask you about 500, promise. Okay. And oh yeah, my name is Jim O'Neill. I'm a principal analyst at Ooyala. I forgot that part. Previous to Ooyala, I was an analyst with Parks Associates. Before that, I worked with all of Fierce Publications, online video, cable, telecom, and I think that's it. So the Fierce Publications, and I've been a journalist before that for about a long time. And I'm really proud. I got my 10-year pin, the grizzled old veteran pin today from streaming media from Joel. So I'm so excited. But let's move back into this. So why are consumers turning to OTT? What's the big driving point for them to go back to OTT or to go into OTT?
Yeah, one of the reasons is they're frustrated with the traditional ways of getting their video products. They're frustrated with their cable operators, bad service, bad customer service, high cable bills, and they think that it makes more sense to simplify. And then beyond that, you start to get into opportunities where audiences are recognizing, I've subscribed to 200 or 500 channels, but I'm only watching 2 or 3 on a monthly basis. So whatever the piece is that they want to pay for and get access to now, it may be 1 or 2 channels. Maybe it's HBO and then maybe there's some other niche subscription. You'll see out in the marketplace a lot of data around what the estimated number of subscriptions a household might be able to handle. And I hear anywhere from 4 to 6 subscriptions is really the kind of the threshold. Whether that's right or not, I have no idea. But there's, you probably have a Netflix subscription, you have some other big subscription, maybe it's HBO Now, and then maybe you have a few smaller niche subscriptions, including one of them being music, Spotify, or one of their competitors. So I think, consumers are really, kind of getting to a point where they can start to get things on their own terms as opposed to be limited to one of the 3 cable tier packages for video.
So what does that do for the myth? Oops, I've done it there. The myth of lean back. Americans were always viewed as lean back. They wanted to be able to be fed their entertainment. They want to be able to sit there and switch channel. That's not necessarily true anymore. In fact, you see people, they'll surf through all the Netflix offerings. They'll surf into what Hulu has to offer or what Amazon has to offer or Sling TV. So how has that changed and why has that changed?
It's funny. I'm glad I get to answer this one. I'm actually a huge fan of lean back, and I think it's
that's enough. Okay, so John.
Exactly. But on the flip side, Machinima is a mobile first company. Yep. Over 70% of our viewership is on mobile. So I'm not quite in the Machinima demographic, I'd say. But there's a huge opportunity for viewing on the mobile phone, and that's why you see services like Verizon and Comcast launching their own mobile phone services this year. But it doesn't mean it's one or the other, it's both. Those millennials do like to watch Game of Thrones in a lean-back fashion, not on a mobile phone, not as much anyway. So I think there are opportunities for both.
John, you work with those cable guys. You're part of that, the cabal. So how does that affect you? What's the difference? What do you see?
So to actually answer the question you just asked before, is another reason people are going OTT, at least we found in our market, is our HBO channel has traditionally been, a complimentary service, a free offering if you subscribe through an operator. But not all operators offer HBO for a number of reasons. You find outside the United States, this becomes commonplace. So that's one reason. They have no other way to get it, so offering this will allow them access to the content. The other thing is they may not have, from an infrastructure standpoint, they just may not have cable operator access at all. So sometimes you have penetration from broadband providers as opposed to COs. So now partnering with broadband providers is another way we can get the content to the user.
How about in Latin America specifically and some of the other developing areas where mobile it's becoming a mobile first strategy?
Sure.
Have you guys seen that? Are you part of that? Is that something you're driving towards or expect to happen?
From our analytics, we still see long-form content people want to watch on the 10-foot experience. It's mostly short form for mobile, but it is slightly shifting, and part of that has to do with demographic audience and the age of the audience as well. So we'll see it's evolving.
So Greg, you mentioned discovery. So what makes discovery happen on all these different platforms?
I think there's a spectrum between sort of on-demand browse content where you know explicitly what you want to watch, and live broadcast content where things are being selected for you. And I think that's one thing that we're seeing with OTT is intelligence being built up around discovery, around recommendations based on your playback history and recommendations based on what you like, where it's not explicitly lean back in the sense of content being fed to you. It's sort of this middle ground where there's choice involved, but it's smart recommendations. And I think that's where a lot of the innovation that we're seeing is happening right now.
We're constantly struggling with the discovery piece versus the curation piece. We think there's so much noise out there that curation's really a key. So all our products have the editorial piece where we're really featuring content, and we look at analytics to kind of decide how we structure our programming. So it's kind of, we're trying to figure out the balance of how much discovery there is versus curation, the Netflix completely discovery model or recommendation model.
Absolutely.
Versus curation.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I found my own personal curation is I look to see how many seasons there are. I want to look to see how many total episodes there are, and I just start them and binge from the beginning all the way through. And it could be 7 years and it's 16 hour-long episodes. That's a glorious experience. So what about you? You're more of a lean back, James. How do you search for new content?
Well, personally, I'm a lean back, but our audience is mostly lean forward. Curation is a very important component of our product, though. Machinima Network and Studio collectively create over 30,000 hours of new content every month. Now, anyone in the room who's in the content business knows that's an unimaginable volume for any media company. This is done by our YouTube creators around the world. From all of that content on a monthly basis, we curate down to about the top 100 hours a month. It's a combination of machine and human curation. And the importance of that is because a premium interface like PlayStation View or Verizon Go 90, they don't want thousands of hours. They want the best 10 hours, whatever that is. So that's what we're trying to do to make it easy for them to, for a viewer to find the best content. And once they found the right playlist, they can just lean back and just watch it. You can even lean back with the phone. There's a difference between hitting the play button and navigating a bunch of videos and just letting a playlist run for 15 minutes. It makes your life a little bit easier.
It's interesting too because from the discovery obviously comes recommendation. And how do each of you deal with recommendation? I'm sure it's different.
For Machinima on the recommendation side, since we're primarily licensing content to platforms, we depend upon their recommendation engines, whatever that may be, their version of the Netflix algorithm. And each company, whether it's Go 90 or Comcast Watchable, they're all at different stages of building the recommendation engine.
From an HBO perspective, yeah, currently it's all proprietary.
Okay.
But we're always evaluating all the recommendations.
But you
that's
can
on the
tell us,
market.
it's a friendly group, so.
Yeah.
No, okay.
And
Greg,
for,
what
for
have you
Plex,
got?
it's interesting in that since we target users who have a large personal collection, there is a sort of discovery aspect of it, or maybe rediscover, where you might have sort of a large collection that you're trying to make your way through. What do I feel like watching right now? I have 30 minutes. I want to watch the next episode of this thing I'm in the middle of, or I want to watch a movie related to X. And so part of what we've been working on is adding in layers of discovery on top of your own collection, where you can start from, you might have a set of movies that all have Tom Cruise, and starting from your playback history combined with your media collection, seeing, we'd like to recommend other movies with Tom Cruise, or pivoting based on those heuristics. So it's interesting depending on what scope we're looking at, whether that's a user's personal collection, or all the content on one provider, or all the content across multiple providers. What is that scope of discovery and recommendation, and where is that sweet spot?
Do you have a spot at which you say, okay, now we're gonna start losing this audience at 85% of a longer form video, 70% of a medium length video, or 90% of a short form video? When do you start posting those recommendations?
I think we're in a little bit of a different position in that our content set is largely sort of pre-screened by users and selected as things they want to watch later or things they've already liked. Where I think you have a bigger challenge the larger the pool gets and sort of the further out the recommendations get from users' explicit signals. And I think that's a great question for making your way through a larger catalog, if that makes sense.
Okay. So let's move back into the why for a second. The why content owners, broadcasters, service providers, why are they jumping into OTT? And we know this last quarter, the last month has been crazy. So what's prompted all of it? John, what do you got?
I guess I would start off with brand is really important. We have a very strong relationship with our affiliates, DTH Brothers, cable operators, and I mean they're carrying our content on air, and they're finding people are going to HBO Go, and they're kind of losing the brand, even though we tag it with the logo. They want people on their website, on their apps. So what they want to do is they want our content and everyone else's content on their platform. So they'd rather drive traffic really to their sites and keep everyone engaged in their brand. So.
It's interesting because Go may be the only TV Everywhere solution out there that has actually disrupted anything, because the operators themselves, most people think TV Everywhere, and I think it's like 32% of people are even aware of TV Everywhere from their operator, and only about 12 to 15% use it. But Go had a name, and it had a brand, and it was a little stickier, a lot stickier.
Yeah,
in fact.
no, that's a great point, because when we do market research, people that even subscribe to the HBO channel aren't aware that they can get it from HBO Go for free because they're paying for it. So.
So James, why do operators and broadcasters and content owners need to go OTT?
Well, I think they're, in linear television world, a lot of them are losing their audiences to other forms of distribution, and so they're shifting over to figure out how to recapture some of that audience. If you look at all the major cable network groups and their earnings announcements over the past year or so, they've all reported losses. So they're looking at how do we get back to that audience, that cord cutter or cord never audience or whatever it may be. And then you've also, now that digital distribution has become so easy for a producer to access and a consumer to watch, it's created all these new opportunities for new media producers. YouTube, I think, was a great example of it the last decade. Now, you have these YouTube creators that are making movies, doing all types of licensing deals. The biggest YouTuber on the planet is a YouTube star, not a traditional music or television star. And you're starting to see, because content creation and distribution have become so easy, you're going to see the same thing happen on the Facebook platform, and I'd say sometime soon thereafter you'll see it happen on Snapchat as well, and Twitter video. Twitter already has its own form of celebrities, but not necessarily in the video world yet.
So what about Amazon's new newest launch, their basic fight with YouTube. How does that affect things?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Amazon is very good at pretty much everything they try to do. They may not get it right the first time, but they have a very strong persistence. So they announced Amazon self-publishing yesterday, which Machinima is participating in. I think it's too early to tell exactly how that plays out, but it's a company that's got significant scale, and their video products in general. You know, I remember when I first subscribed to Prime, and then I found out now I get the video subscription for free. Now there's a whole slew of original programming that makes up Prime, and now as of yesterday, the announcement for Amazon self-publishing. This creates a whole new environment for talent to produce content and for audiences to connect with that content. When you think about Amazon's sort of influence over the customer, if this were just a new startup launching a video distribution platform, it would be much more difficult than someone with Amazon's influence who's also, selling you an existing video subscription, a shipping subscription for your products that you buy. And if you're, in business, maybe you're buying cloud services from them and other things.
They have this integrated distribution system that works not just for that, but just for getting the word out, and it's very powerful.
Yep.
But tell us a little bit, Greg, about your standard, most normal kind of publisher.
So it's interesting. This gets back to sort of the discussion of platforms and neutrality and who is set up to be that central platform to offer video and other content to users. And there's different stakes here. Some are sort of deeply invested in a particular device or an operating system, or selling you another subscription, or pushing their own first-party content first, where people on the platform end up competing with the platform's own first-party offerings. From Plex, we're increasingly interested in adding online services and channels. Plex has a channels platform where people can add in extensible online streaming video and music to Plex, and in an open environment like that, where we've been interested in attracting publishers and content providers to getting on that platform. And I think it's been interesting to figure out what exactly is it about a platform that creates that winning combination. Is it figuring out the billing relationship? Is it figuring out the device reach or the user reach? And what is it that finds that sort of sweet spot for content providers to make that platform that encompasses all of both your own media as well as streaming media, and creates a fair deal for users as well as for content providers and services. And right now, I don't think we've found that sweet spot. Mm-hmm. We found a bunch of different platforms that all have their own agenda, right? Whether it's promoting a device or an operating system or a subscription service or their own content alongside yours. So that's one thing that I think will play out over the next couple of years as we see OTT evolve.
James, I want to follow up though on the idea of your producers, your content producers. Who are they?
Well, they range from a noob who is uploading one video a month to YouTube. So actually, let me back up. Machinima, I alluded to this earlier. We produce content in two ways. One is a network of creators around the world, and then one is the Machinima Studio, which is really our premium studio content. It looks like any other studio you've seen, and that studio is producing content with a sort of value parameter of around anywhere from $2 million an hour on the high end down to about $30,000 an hour on the low end. That's our studio content. When you get into our content network, there's 25,000 of these creators around the world. I'm sure everyone in the room has heard of PewDiePie. I'll use him as an example. PewDiePie is no longer affiliated with Machinima, but he was with Machinima in his very early days. Now he's the biggest YouTuber on the planet. But Machinima's talent today ranges from someone who might be uploading one video a month to uploading 3 or 4 videos a day on YouTube. And those creators have subscribers and followers that will watch anything and everything that they put out. And from a subscriber count, some of them have 50,000 or 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Some of them may have 5 or 10 million subscribers on YouTube, and they've actually built a full-time business out of that level of success. So that's who the creators are, and they're doing gameplay videos, they're doing informational, educational, comedy. They do it within the gameplay environments, or they might be doing mashups of content around superheroes. Content from Marvel or DC Comics, Superman, Batman, anything else from the DC Comics universe.
It makes herding this OTT discussion very difficult because it just goes everywhere. It really does. It's kind of like field mice. Off they go, But John, tell us a little bit about so HBO got a pay TV channel, got a TV Everywhere channel, got an SVOD channel, TVOD, AVOD.
We're not doing transactional VOD yet.
Not yet, though, but that's a yet, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how do you balance those things? What's the big winner? What's the big money earner?
I would say a lot of this also has to depend with the content that we license. So
Okay.
we have original programming like Game of Thrones, of course, so we're a lot more flexible what we can do there. But also we have first windows for big movie studios releases. So right now I think a lot of the content owners are trying to figure out how to structure deals from a distribution standpoint. So OTT's new, and so they're trying to figure out, what the cost structure looks like and how they're going to allow people to access it and what window time frame they're going to allow to access it. So
what's interesting is that you guys actually do have a free as well. It's that pirated stuff. The Game of Thrones. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's not a good thing, is it?
Well, one of the new things we just introduced as of with the Game of Thrones premiere is we're offering. You mentioned freemium before. We're actually offering free views now. So one of our new business models, and this is global, domestic, and for everyone else.
To pull people into the.
Yeah, to pull people in for all of our original programming. Our first episodes of every season series are going to go on air right after online after it goes on air. So the premiere of Game of Thrones you get to watch free right after it finished airing at 10 o'clock at night. Yep.
And have you started that?
Yeah, we started with the premiere. Game
And
of
what
Thrones
kind
season.
of feedback?
Well, I mean, you've probably seen this in news. Every time we air the first episode of Game of Thrones for a season, it's a huge spike. So, but what we did is we enabled the free view across all of our digital properties. So you can go to .com, you can go to our promo apps as well as our OTT, and so we saw much more engagement across all of our platforms, even YouTube. We offered some of that on YouTube.
So Machinima has a different model, obviously. You are almost most, if not all of it, is free, as long as you're.
So our
Sign up.
content, all the content on YouTube is free. We have an SVOD service on PlayStation Vue. PlayStation last year launched their answer to the cable subscription. So you basically subscribe to about 50 channels, cost you about $40 a month. That's their basic tier of channels. Then there's another tier on top of that called the Elite tier, which Machinima is included in. It's another $20 a month. And that's how you access the Machinima service on PlayStation Vue. Our content on Verizon Go 90, typically our strategy with off YouTube distribution is to work with the platform's business goals. So in the case of Verizon Go 90, their goal was to acquire free users of this Go 90 application. It's a cross-carrier, free to download, free to watch application that has content from folks like Machinima, Awesomeness TV, Vice, even ESPN and the NFL. So their goal was really to create consumer preference for their platform by way of the content. So in March of this year, we premiered a new live action series based on Street Fighter. Street Fighter is one of the most popular video games of all time. It's got over 3 decades of brand equity. This was our season 2 of a series around that IP, working with the video game publisher Capcom. It's been one of the most successful pieces of content on the Go 90 platform since they launched, and has helped achieve that goal of helping them acquire subscribers, helping them acquire users. But in the case of Comcast Watchable and in some of our other AVOD syndicated products, those are free to watch, free to download as well.
I have good news and bad news. The good news is we've already talked for like 35 minutes. This has been really good, really fast. The bad news is that's only 10 minutes left. But I want to ask if anybody has any questions out there, see if there's any thoughts that we haven't yet addressed. We have plenty more to go, but it'd be really good. It would be good for the video if somebody could say, I have a question, I have a question. I know it's late. It's late. Yes?
What are your thoughts on content protection?
Content protection.
Requirements that are showing up from the content owners.
Yeah, so I can speak to us because yeah, all of our content is DRM'd.
But Richard Putnam says it's okay to pirate it as long as it's a good quality, right?
Exactly. So I mean, it makes it very complex for us. When we license content, there's a lot of contractual obligations on what type of DRM we can use. So we have that kind of restriction, and of course, each device manufacturer or distribution outlet has its own formats that it supports. So we basically have to ensure that we're supporting all the most common combinations of streaming and DRM formats.
And there are about 12 that are big, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of different combinations. So so basically every time we have to launch a new form factor or device, we have to re-encode the entire catalog and package it, DRM it. It's a lot of operational overhead.
So you guys went over the top, and you started by trying to build your own, and it was really, really hard, and realized this is not what we do. And so you went out and you went to MLBAM and got them to launch it, to help you go over the top of that. So with an organization with as deep a pockets and as high a standards as you have, as HBO has, how do other people go over the top? I mean, when they don't have those kind of deep pockets, I mean, and we talked about this earlier as a setup question. We talked about this earlier. And so give us your thought about bundling versus apps versus DIY stuff. Any one of you guys?
I think it's really interesting. I mean, if we look at Machinima and HBO, we've seen them sort of hedge their bets on platforms, on technologies, where right now there isn't a clear answer to giving a coherent experience, giving an unfragmented experience across all those devices. And like with Machinima, you have content sort of between YouTube and your own first-party apps and own first-party experiences. And I think we're still trying to figure out, like, not everyone wants to be in the business of maintaining 12 apps across a dizzying array of DRM combinations and device combinations. But at the same time, we want control over how those experiences are offered. And I think that's what we're trying to figure out today is, both for Machinima, for HBO, and for Plex, how do we get to that coherent experience that gives users a consistent offering with consistent constraints? We talked about DRM protection, at the same time as giving a fair deal.
Because we always talk about how content is king, but in the end, it is consumer that's king. They're the ones that are either plunking down the coin or pushing the button to watch. And so, that's something that you'll hear in a lot of other conferences. Content is king, and it's like, yeah, it's really important, but without a user, it's just it's dead air. So
yeah. So I guess another way to maybe achieve the goal is to look for partners, right? So now you're going to see HBO content through Dish or DirecTV. So we don't necessarily have to maintain all the different apps. We can look at partners really as a distribution channel.
I would say, there's no one size fits all. It's a great example, being able to find HBO in these different combinations. And there's not one of those that solves it for all the consumers of HBO. But if you're a programmer like we are, there's always going to be trade-offs to building your owned and operated strategy versus licensing content to a bunch of other storefronts. If you want control, you got to pay for it, and it's a different investment profile than if you're just licensing content in. I think it's so early. We're in the middle of a transformation from primarily being a YouTube multi-channel network to being a premium program, multi-platform programmer to consumers. One of the best ways to figure out exactly what the consumer wants is just to get your cards on the table and find out. This is how we developed a lot of our programming in the past, is just by looking at the data. So as we start to learn about what programs work in certain environments, we'll have a hit program in an AVOD platform won't work so well in SVOD, and one that'll work great in SVOD but won't work so good in AVOD. So it's really, now is a great time to be learning it. There's no secret formula to it. So that's my thought.
Yeah, there's definitely no one size fit all at this point at all. Other questions? Yes.
This is for James. Just so on these platforms that consumers are paying for, whether it's Sony View or whatever, that's an SVOD product from your perspective? You don't have ads running on Sony PlayStation?
That's right. Yeah, PlayStation is an SVOD product. It's in the tier, and it's also offered as an a la carte.
And Amazon would be the same? The Amazon
Well,
bundle?
Amazon's self-publishing. So Amazon has multiple products. What was announced yesterday is their self-publishing product, which is primarily an AVOD platform. You can do SVOD pricing and inclusion of advertising or not. We're starting out with the AVOD side of it, essentially doing a mirror of some of the content we already have on YouTube.
Okay.
And we'll look to do some more advanced stuff with Amazon in the future.
It's curious because I wonder about consumer behavior between if all of your content or most of it is available on your YouTube channel, ad supported, what is the breakdown between, do you have any sense about that, whether they want to pay $5 a month or something for a subscription and have it be ad free?
Yeah. Most of the content in our SVOD service is not on YouTube, so that's a key distinction of it. There's really two big distinctions with our SVOD product. One is a bunch of original programming you can't get anywhere else, and then the second one is we'll save you the trouble of sifting through 30,000 hours of new content a month on YouTube, and we'll give you the best 100 or 200 hours. So it's about curation. Yeah.
Other questions? Well, that's a wrap. It feels like it should be Friday, but it's only Tuesday. So, it is Tuesday, right? Wednesday. It's Wednesday. See, I've lost a day. It's coming back from the other side of the earth. It's not my fault. Blame it on Delta. So, big hand for these guys. They did a great job. And thank you all for coming to Streaming Media. It's fun to close it down. Not in that way, but it's fun to close it up. Yes, finish it up. Thanks a lot.